Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. And now the Friday Crime Report. North Codorus Township, Pennsylvania, Wednesday, September 17th, 2025, 2 o'clock p.m. On Tuesday, around 11:23 p.m., a woman contacted the York County Police. She had seen a man wearing camouflage. He was on her property and using binoculars to look through their windows. The woman knew who he was. He was her daughter's ex-boyfriend, and he was stalking them. The mother said that she'd spotted the man through a trail camera and that he probably had arrived in a black pickup truck. The responding officers found a black 2004 Ford Ranger parked along the wood line, but it was unoccupied. They spoke to the ex-girlfriend, and she told the police that her own pickup truck had been set on fire on August 20th, and she suspected her ex-boyfriend was responsible, but at that time, she had requested no further investigation. Today was different. She didn't just want an investigation, she also wanted a restraining order too. The ex-girlfriend provided police with a still photo from the trail camera showing the suspect in his camo outfit. She identified him as her ex. They had only dated for a short period, but the relationship had been a rough one, so she never invited him to her home. The photo showed a white man with an AR-15 style rifle slung across his chest. The police searched the area, even brought in a drone, but were unable to locate the suspect over the course of several hours. Police decided to issue a warrant for his arrest on the grounds of stalking, loitering, and prowling at night, and they decided they would resume their search the next morning. In the meanwhile, the police told the two women that they should leave the residence for their own safety. The next morning, there were officers from the York County Police and a deputy from the York County Sheriff's Department who went to the boyfriend's residence at the 1000 block of Har Road. This house was on the same road as the two women. They were attempting to serve the warrant. They spoke to the family of the suspect, but when he wasn't there, they left. A little after 2 o'clock p.m., the 5 officers went back to the home of the two women who had called them the night before. They wanted to see if the suspect might have returned to the scene of the crime. One of the officers, Detective Isaiah Immenheiser, approached the door to the residence. Detective Sergeant Cody Becker was right behind him, followed by Detective Mark Baker. They found that the door to the women's house was unlocked. Now, the two women had already left the home for their own safety, so the door should have been locked. Upon opening the door, the police were met with a volley of gunfire from an AR-15 with a suppressor. The police tried to retreat, but 3 of them were gunned down where they stood. One of the deputies was shot near his vehicle, but returned fire from behind cover. The gunfight continued as the suspect left the home and made it to the road. There was a final exchange of gunfire, during which the suspect was struck and died. All in all, the shootout lasted only 2 minutes. Before long, more law enforcement arrived, and they found 3 cops dead and 2 critically wounded. 30 police vehicles responded, blocking off roads bordered by a barn, a goat farm, and soybean and cornfields. Investigators also found a dog, a black lab, shot dead in the basement. The DA said that had the two women come home when the suspect broke in, he would have definitely killed both of them. Now, this story has made headlines over the last 48 hours, but it hasn't gotten anywhere near as much attention as it warrants because it had to share space with Charlie Kirk and the phony outrage and adoration that the white right's been throwing on him. Governor Josh Shapiro showed up to get his photo op in. This single appearance is far more than he's ever done for the black voters who made him governor. Now, there's a reason why I decided to make this the subject of this Friday's Crime Report. You've probably noticed that I haven't mentioned the name of the man, nor have I shown his picture. There's a reason for that. You see, even though this crime happened 48 hours ago, the authorities have been very close-mouthed about this man. And even though he killed 3 cops and wounded 2 others, they haven't released his picture. They took their sweet time finally making his name public. He's been identified as 24-year-old Matthew Ruth. White media reports are that this wasn't his first brush with the law, but there's no details about his priors either. This is a guy who killed 3 cops and wounded 2 others, in case you need me to remind you. And yet both the authorities and the white media are protecting his identity like it was some sort of state secret. I would love to say that this is unusual, but as we all know too well, that's actually routine. Because when cops get killed, if the shooter is black, they'll have his face plastered everywhere in no more than 24 hours. And the white media will turn over every stone to find his picture, his family, anyone and everyone. They'll tell you his criminal record, if he ever skipped school, if he left the lights on at the Motel 6, you name it. The white media doesn't need the police to put out any mugshots or photos. All they need is just a name, and they can find the rest on their own, and they would have been publishing it everywhere already, had he been black. But when I saw this story, and after a whole day the police still hadn't put out the killer's picture, well, obviously the white media had no interest in doing it either, and that told us everything we need to know. About the only intelligent thing James Carville, the Cajun Skeletor, ever said was that Pennsylvania is Philadelphia in the east, Pittsburgh in the west, and Alabama in between. And the governor, Josh Shapiro, a Democrat, he's made himself right at home there. So what does that tell you about the Democratic values in that state? And since they are basically a red state with only a couple of black enclaves that makes it potentially blue, but only on election night, we have to ask if the killing of Charlie Kirk made it where the authorities in Pennsylvania didn't want to say or do anything out of fear that it would further dilute Charlie Kirk's racist narrative that black people are so dangerous. Here we are with the first mass murder, not shooting, but mass murder, following Charlie Kirk's demise, and it's yet again not a black person responsible for it. Gee, if you didn't know better, you'd swear that Charlie Kirk's black crime tropes are all a pack of lies. The creeps who are trying to make hay out of the death of that Ukrainian woman are predictably silent too on this one. It was all about trying to gin up some phony outrage for political advantage. The killing of Charlie Kirk has given them something that they're genuinely upset about, but the problem is that the suspect isn't black. So they can't push the same black-specific agenda that they were going to try with that Ukrainian woman. And now this has happened. Pennsylvania voted for Trump in 2024, so especially now the authorities out there are feeling solidarity with the current administration. They don't want to do anything to embarrass them or undercut their message. But the fact that the police told the women to leave their home, what that means is they knew that this guy was in imminent danger beforehand. And they were right. This happened in North Codorus Township, which has a population of about 9,000 people. This is one of those rural places with farms and cowpokes, and of course well-armed white men who carry military-style weapons because you never know when one of your neighbor's goats will try to trespass on your property, right? This is why I do these crime reports and remind you that the non-black population is spread out across the country, not concentrated into a few urban centers like black people, and as a result, whenever you have these things going on in these rural areas, they're happening all over the place. But it's usually far away from where the main offices of your local TV station or newspaper are located at. And it also doesn't help that these exact same white media outlets, whenever they see these things, they know about it. But as far as they're concerned, well, if we don't report on it, then it didn't happen, right? This is the inverse of them trying to conjure magic. And the white media simply doesn't report on the massacres and killing sprees that go on out in the sticks unless it's something like this, something that's just so egregious and noisy that it simply can't be ignored. So instead, they try to downplay it or cover it up altogether. When you hear about people from the dominant society talking winsomely about how they're so eager to go live out in the middle of nowhere, it's not because there's good schools out there. That's the BS that they talk about whenever they're saying why they don't want to live near black people. Well, we want to live somewhere where there's good schools. Okay, so why the hell do they want to live out in the middle of the rural areas? There's no good schools out there. In fact, there's no schools at all. We know what the reason is. It's because they want to practice their culture, such as it is, away from the prying eyes of the public, places where the media can't be forced to report on it. These are the small-town values that the white media in general, and the white right in specific, love to harp about, as if there's something special about it. But this is what goes on. And this is the reason that these white supremacists go on these silly copy and paste campaigns and comment sections, because as long as we're talking about black people, we're not talking about them. The white supremacist is the predator class, the political violence class. All their number games and statisticulation means nothing. They're seeing that right now, and so is the public. This is an expression of culture that we're seeing, a racial privilege based upon genocide and murder without consequence, continuing the exact same way that it started. We won't be seeing anyone making any hay out of Blue Lives Matters on this one, or reminding us incessantly that police do a dangerous job. You won't see anybody from Fox News calling these guys heroes. They're not even going to be reporting on it. Since there's no unarmed black person that the police killed this time, they don't need to drag out those BS talking points to run interference for it. You're not going to have anybody saying back the blue right now, because that is and has always been an anti-black dog whistle. They don't need it, so they're not going to be using it. Remember that. This latest incident just goes to show whether it's Daniel Penny or some other thug from rural America, there's a racial template for how the white media covers stories. They ignored Daniel Penny until some people found out who the hell he was, and in this case they're doing the exact same thing. This is all about societal programming. Out of sight, out of mind. And then we'll have the white supremacists trying to claim that black people commit all the crimes in America, when the reality happens to be that as long as you're not black, they're much less likely to actually charge you with the crime of murder, and even if they do, they'll knock it down to something else later on. That's the pattern. But this is yet another example, the second in 1 week, that America doesn't have a gun problem. It has a white privilege problem. But it's also another example that apparently the cost of dead bodies, be it white children or white cops, well, this country decided a long time ago that's just the cost of doing business. And that's this week's Friday Crime Report. Keep your eyes open and stay on alert, because there's a lot worse criminals out there than the ones the white corporate media chooses to show you. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Ikekas Dorset, Andrew Lewis, Dean Ballantyne, Brian Walton, and Yusuf Morris. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.